Welcome to Joyful Sober. This is a series of interviews with artists, entrepreneurs, and inspiring people who are doing extraordinary things beyond just drinking booze. So today I'm really excited to chat with Remi Gordon, an intuitive coach, space holder, and card reader about their sober journey and incredible work with clients. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country where we meet today, the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pay my deepest respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who might be listening into our chat this morning. So Remi works with a range of clients to support them to level up and make big changes in their life. And Remi's made some huge changes over the past few years too. So I'm really excited to chat to you, Remi, and dig into all of this. It's so nice to have you here.
So stoked to be here. And yeah, reflecting on the past few years, I was like, there is a lot of ground to cover.
Oh, excellent. Where shall we start? Do you want to start with when you became sober? We can go back in time from there a little bit as
Yeah,
well. I'd love to hear, what inspired you to make that decision really as a starting point, and then the changes that have come after that.
yeah, absolutely. I think so. I got sober in November 2019. So coming up on 2 years, which is a wild time. And I think for me, I knew a long time before that I needed to make some changes in my life. I knew that drinking wasn't serving me anymore, but I think like a lot of people who get sober experience, that took me a while to come to terms with, really. In that, I tried moderation. I'd go periods where I might go like 3 months without drinking, and then I'd be like, great, now it's time to celebrate. Let's get some drinks. So I think I knew, for a really long time that it just wasn't working for me anymore. And I feel like I wasn't really present in my life. I was kind of just like going through the motions. And I certainly wasn't enjoying life. It was, just not a great time. Not a great time.
Yeah. Do you think you realize that more in hindsight? I mean, it sounds like you knew, but do you think you get more clarity on that looking back as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely looking back on it now, I'm like, oh my God, like, were you okay? Like, you weren't okay. um, but I think the clarity comes from how awesome life is sober. And you're like, oh, wow, no, that was like, I knew it wasn't great, but I didn't realize like it could be so good.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. That's definitely my experience too. So it's really nice to chat with someone else who finds that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like I love hanging out with sober people because we're all just like so jazzed up on life. Like, it's so great. Like, look at the sky; it's so blue. Like, so
Yeah,
much to be grateful for.
it's amazing. And then in terms of like learning to listen into your intuition, which you clearly use in your work now, do you feel like that came after sobriety entirely, or was it something you were thinking about beforehand as well, or not even?
No, it wasn't really on my radar. Like, I think for years I had struggled to trust my intuition, and getting that confused between like, is this intuition? Is it anxiety? Is it something else? And while I still, have to balance that out now, definitely like, my spirituality and being able to really like tune into myself has come after sobriety for me, for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, from the point where you got sober to when you maybe consider yourself as to having some sort of spiritual interests or connections, like, well, how did that kind of journey go, or what was the timeline
Yeah.
on that?
I think so. The timeline was so I got sober, not October, November 2019, and then was still kind of. I think for me, I was still trying to kind of live my normal life without alcohol. So I was still a lot of my social interactions still revolved around, going to bars, going to pubs. It was summer, so that's what everyone's doing. And then like blessing in disguise, I think, for me was COVID and going into lockdown, because it actually allowed me to remove myself from, all of those situations and external factors, and kind of listen to myself more. Like I had no choice but to actually sit with myself. And so it wasn't my first like foray into anything kind of spiritual. Was I went to like a full moon circle via Zoom in like April last year. And it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I've done a lot of work on myself, I think, over the past sort of 18 months, but particularly the past 12. And I think it kind of has taken me, like I needed to get a handle on, I feel like in early sobriety for me, I was still like quite in denial. I was like, no, well, I'm not going to drink, but like I can still go about everything. And, I'm certainly not going to dig into whatever was sitting behind why I was drinking. And whereas, yeah, the next 12 months, sort of after my 1 year anniversary, I was like, all right, there's shit. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
Yeah. Sorry, as much as you want.
This shit coming up, like I probably really need to actually work on myself and look at like what was sitting behind those behaviors, instead of just trying to ignore them. Like that's not going to be helpful in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. That's so interesting, isn't it? Because we're kind of forced to in a way when you can't just kind of have a drink and forget about those things that are coming up.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I unfortunately still smoke cigarettes, but holding the vision for me that in a few months' time I will be a non-smoker. And I quit smoking for a period earlier this year. But then I cracked it one night because I was like, everyone has a thing, like, my thing used to be drinking. Like, I just want a thing. Like, I don't want to breathe through it, breathe through the stress. And so now that was a good turning point for me though, to be like, okay, like what coping mechanisms do I have to put into my toolbox to like actually help me with this?
Yeah, maybe you can have a healthier thing next.
Yeah,
Because you're right,
exactly.
we all do need some things, right? Like we
Yeah.
can't just go through with nothing. Then when a difficult situation pops up, if you don't have any sort of tools or any sort of comforts to turn to, it's like having the healthy ones or, ones that aren't so bad lined up ready for you. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yes, it's so cool. It's such an interesting journey, like, that commitment to not numbing out from your feelings, like starting with not drinking, but then leading to, of course, doing all that inner work as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's big. I think, sobriety for me, like not drinking turned down all of the noise, but also made it a lot louder. So like everything that I was trying to drown out and ignore, got a lot louder. Like, I don't know about for you, but I think like for early sobriety for me, I was like, I have so much time, like to just be, and that was really confronting. One, from the perspective of realizing how much time I spent drinking, and two, then being like, how do I fill this space?
Yeah, yeah. That it's so interesting, isn't it? I did so much research on it because I was like, what is going on? Because, previously you go out for a drink and then like hours would just evaporate.
Yeah,
But now when you're not drinking, it's like you probably don't want to stay there for 6 hours. You might want to say hi to everyone for a couple of hours and then go do something else. And
absolutely.
yeah, it's like it's almost like time evaporates with your inhibitions. It's in the prefrontal cortex in the same spot. So it is like winning back all this time at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a lot because you're like, wow, what is happening? Like it's really confused. Like I found it really confusing. And then just trying to like fill that time with other things, or like trying to push through and like stay out at the pub for 6 hours. And I'm like, I hate this. Like I always thought, for years, I've, my hobby, like my personality trait was like, yeah, we meet, we go for a drink, or well, more than a drink. It was never just a drink. But, I would do that. And then I think when I got sober, I tried to push through that. And I was like, yeah, like, let's go out, I'll drink something else. It'll be cool. And then realizing I was like, I actually hate bars. Like, I just liked drinking.
Yeah. So interesting, because over COVID, we don't really know that or get to try that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be figuring all of that out now, I guess.
I think what's really like come through for me is that ultimately, like, it doesn't matter the place or the environment that I'm in, it does come down to the people that you're with, like those, so I think it's really allowed me, to spend more time with the people that I actually care about and that I enjoy being with and that like light me up and make me feel good, as opposed to just like going out with people who we would be drinking all the time,
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yep, that's so good. So many
But it's
knock-on
like,
positive effects from that as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like, in the past, would I have loved jumping on a interview at like 9:30 on a Saturday morning? No, I would not. But
Probably
now I'm
not.
like, sure.
The day's young.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And then I'd love to hear as well about your journey to coaching others. So you've like obviously worked through a lot of your own stuff, and then, yeah, how did that go when you started taking on clients and sharing some of this wisdom?
Yeah, I think like coaching has been something that's been on my radar for like 4 years or so. When I first worked with a coach myself, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, maybe I could do this. But immediately was like, nope, 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 that's not happening. Let's shut that down. And like I can look back now and I'm like, it just, in terms of timing, it really just wasn't the right time for me. There was a lot that I still needed to go through and experience before I could do what I'm doing now. And I think working with clients is just like, I could never have imagined how much I would love it, but it lights me up so much to be able to support people in really just doing whatever the fuck they want. I think, so many of us, like we've all experienced it. There's all of these like external expectations that get placed on us. That happens in sobriety. It happens in so many situations for so many people. And really just we can internalize that. And we're like, oh, well, if I don't want that or I don't want to do that, that means that there's something wrong with me. And it's like, no, it means that you're actually tuned into like what you really want. So like, let's follow that. So I find coaching so much fun. Coaching and space holding is just, yeah, I feel like I've really found the thing that like I was actually meant to do, which is amazing.
That's so cool. It's really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you talk about how you would help like a client tune in to say if someone came to you with a question about what they're meant to be doing or like big life questions, how do you go about helping them like locate some of that wisdom?
Yeah, it's just about for me it's like asking some like really simple but like powerful questions. So if someone's like, oh, I try to pay a lot of attention to what people are saying. So if they're saying, oh, so this opportunity has come up, I feel like I should go for it because it's good. Like say this is a job opportunity, it's good money, and I don't really know what I want to do apart from that. So like I should take this opportunity, and I'm like, cool. So I'm hearing a lot of shoulds. Like what do you actually want to do? And I feel like a lot of times it made me realize that people don't often get asked like what do you want, and it's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
shit. Oh, I don't know. I've never thought about it before. And for some people, when you ask them what they want, it comes through really clear, and they're like, it's like they've been waiting their whole life for this opportunity to be like, actually, what I really want to do is this thing, and that's really scary, but oh my god. And then for others, it's like, oh, I've really got no fucking idea. And so then it's like, okay, cool. So if money wasn't an object, if there was absolutely no constraints in the world, what would you do? what would your perfect day look like? Like, how would you like to spend your time? What are the things that you loved doing when you were younger? What are the things you love doing for fun? When do you feel like you're in flow? And from that, you can start to piece together the themes of like, hey, well, everything you're saying actually relates to working with people, and supporting them. So how could we maybe start to explore that a little bit? And I think it's the exploration, as opposed to being like, some people are like, yeah, but I definitely want to do this. And it's like, great, sure. Let's still just explore around the edges. But for others, it is like a true deep exploration into, okay, like we can go anywhere with this, like there are no limits. Like, let's just have fun and see what you find out about yourself.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So many times people wouldn't have the opportunity to work with someone else on doing that. Like you might sit around in your own head, coming up with a few ideas, and then fear gets in the way. But having like a supportive person like you to work through some of those big questions is pretty spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's another thing around like accountability here, and a lot of people feel like, if they need someone else to like hold them accountable, that somehow they are like not doing a great job as a human. But I think knowing that about yourself is so powerful. All of us are different, right? And if you
Mm.
if you need someone else to hold you accountable, like, that's awesome that you know that about yourself. Personally, I'm the same, and I think that's why my clients like appreciate working with me, because I'm also like, I'm just a human. Like, I also work with coaches who coach me because I've got all these big dreams and ideas, but when I'm by myself, I'm like, I could just go on Instagram.
Yeah. Yep, yep. It's
Yeah.
cool. It's like being able to work for on yourself, but having a boss in a way to make sure you're still, doing
Yeah.
doing the work. So
Yeah.
many of us would be like that. We did like a kind of, I think it's a personality, one of those kind of personality tests
Mhm.
at work, and there are all these different types that come up, and mine was called the obliger, and it was definitely like the person who is
Yeah.
really bad at keeping promises to themselves but great when they're like meeting a friend to go for a run or like doing a thing for somebody else. It will never be late, or will always deliver. And like I guess also that in a way gets stuck as a story, like where you can blow it into something bigger where it's almost an excuse for not doing your own stuff. But it also, like, when you become aware of that, then there's the ability to make those changes that you can at a personal level, but then also employ others to help you on that journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think like the stories that we tell ourselves are so powerful, and they can be powerful in a way that like keeps us where we are doing the same things, or we can choose to change them. I think once
Mm.
you can see like that, you're saying, oh, I always put others in front of me. It's like, cool, you don't have to anymore.
Yeah, you know that.
Yeah.
What are you
Now
going to
that
do
you
about
know that,
it?
what do you actually want to do? You want to put yourself first. Okay, like what does that look like for you? I think, yeah, there's so much magic in like the words that we tell ourselves, on both sides.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And it goes back to that thing where you were talking about looking out for those words as well with clients, like the shoulds, and yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think seeing, the difference in someone when they're talking as well. I do all of my sessions like online via Zoom, like with video calls. And it's like, someone's like, oh, yeah, this and that. And they're like, oh, but like this and that. They start talking about it. And I'm like, I mean, the answer feels obvious to me. But I think sometimes you need that space to actually express it as well, because, like I was saying, you don't always get asked what do you want to do, but conversely, you don't always have a space that is like just for you to express whatever it is that you need and to talk things out loud. We
Mm.
Lots of us can do that, like with our friends or our families or our colleagues or our therapists. But having that space where it's really just for you and whatever you need to say is, I think, really special.
Yeah, that's so nice. And you read cards as well. Do you bring that into your coaching, or can you tell us about that? How that works
Yeah,
together? Yeah.
yeah, I do. So I love using Oracle and tarot cards as just another tool, right? To help us tap into the energy of something. So I'll often use them when a client is, really, really struggling to kind of tap into what do they actually want right now, what do they need, or making a decision. So I use them in my coaching series, but more in a once-off session. So I offer like a once-off session, which is like, okay, come to me with what is going on. Let's do a card reading. Let's brainstorm some options and like lay down a plan. So I really like being able to merge kind of like intuition and spirituality and using those tools with like really practical, actionable steps and a plan. Very like left brain, right brain. I like to combine those together because I think having your cards read, beautiful, it can be so beautiful, but then it's like, okay, well, what do I do with that information now? So it's about actually making that actionable for you. But I love it so much. It's always really fun. And I've only been reading cards probably, just over between 12 to 18 months.
Yep.
And I love it. I love it so much for what it can bring out for all of us,
Yeah, yeah, that's so nice. And then to be able to, keep talking about that over time as you work together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
check back in and be like, okay, so like, what's the energy feeling like now? And it can be very different. And like, okay, let's replan, redirect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And do you have like a particular dream client that you love to work with, or do you have like a range of different people and different challenges that you kind of yeah, I'd love to
yeah.
hear about that
I
diversity
mean,
or not.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know in business they're like, have like your client, like a dream client. Um, and it's probably why I'm like not exceptional business person. But I just love working with all different kinds of people. I love it so much. And I think that's why I also am a life coach in that kind of broader sense, as opposed to really getting specific on, you can be so specific in what you coach on and the areas and topics. But I think working like really holistically at like a higher level across all areas of someone's life, because everything impacts one another, and
Mm,
if you're working on your mindset and working on your confidence in the workplace, undoubtedly that is going to filter out into other areas of your life, which is so fun. So because I love that diverse range of topics, a diverse range of people come with those areas.
yeah, yeah.
But I would say ultimately, like, my dream client is the person who, whether they're ready or not, they are like, I'm ready at least to acknowledge, like, I need to make a change. That's
Mm,
it. It's, you just have to be ready to say yes to yourself and to start exploring and step your toes in the water. So those are the people that I love to work with, and it's really the only way we can work together. Because if you're not ready to start that exploration, then there's not a lot of
yeah.
value that I can provide.
Yeah, exactly. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's so open as well as to where you can go together.
Yeah, I think I'm constantly amazed at, we set these goals, at the start of working together, and then 3 or 6 months later, it's like, what? How did we end up here? Absolutely never could have imagined that. But I think that's what I love about it so much. And I think that's why, the way that I work, it's really practical, but we don't make a plan, for 3 months or 6 months time, because you don't know what's going to happen or what's going to shift and change in your life or within you as a person. So having that freedom, I think, to explore and play, is really fun, and what makes it like such a special experience.
Yeah, incredible. And what's next for you? You mentioned you're working with coaches yourself. Like, do you have particular goals that you're working towards, or for you and for your business as well, personally and professionally?
Yeah, I think personally, I have, like, and professionally, I think it's all tied in together for me, because I don't really have a separate, like, what you see is what you get. with me. My business and me, we're one and the same. We're together. So I think for me, I was thinking about this yesterday about my vow to myself, to kind of really stand and like land deeply and fully into who I am, into my power, into my presence. I think I've really dipped my toes in the water with that over the past 12 months. And I never could have imagined that I would be, here in this situation that I'm in right now, which I'm so grateful for, and absolutely wouldn't have happened for me if I was still drinking. But yeah, I think just really standing in my power is what I'm looking for. And my from a business perspective, I'm about to finish up my corporate job, and I've decided to take the leap into doing this full time, because why the fuck not?
Yeah, seriously.
Why not? You've got to do it at some point. And it just feels like the time is really right for me. So I don't have that many goals other than I just want to keep doing what I'm doing because I love it
Yeah.
so much.
It's awesome. And that's such a big, it's such a big milestone to sort of realize, okay, I've been juggling doing this other work alongside the thing that I really want to be doing, finding that moment to say, okay, I'm all in is
Yeah.
yeah, that's actually quite huge. That's a big moment as well.
It is. And I just think I'm just really excited because, I've been coaching sort of 6 months on the side while working full time in a pretty hectic corporate job. And I'm like, well, if I already love it this much and I'm already being able to support my clients so deeply in this space when it's not the thing that I'm fully doing, I'm like, oh, I can't even imagine how much more, how much richer and deeper the connections and the conversations and what people achieve while we work together will be when I'm fully in it. So that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, incredible. When you've got your full energy and self stepped into that power, I love it.
I just can't even imagine it. I'll let you know.
Yeah, please. It's so cool. And do you have any sort of thoughts or tips that we haven't covered that you would want to share with anyone who's in the early stages of embarking on a journey like this, who might be just, sober curious or starting to think about, maybe I'm ready to make some big changes, but I haven't really started yet?
Yeah, I think I've got a couple.
Yeah.
I think having a support network around you is so helpful and important. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be, the people in your life that are closest to you. But for me, when I first got sober, online communities were and they still are, but I really leaned on them heavily in those in the first year, really. So finding your community, because I don't know about you, but before I stopped drinking, I thought that no one was sober.
Me too.
I was like, oh, no one, everyone drinks. And then you get sober and you see so many sober people and you're like, oh, I was just around people who drank.
Yes.
Again, it's I don't really like bars, just drinking. It's it's the environment you're in.
Yep,
Right?
absolutely. And you're not looking for it, I guess.
No.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Online, you can really connect with people with like-minded interests. So it's easier to find them than just looking around, perhaps
Yeah.
in the real world. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the parties, who's drinking a soda water?
Yeah.
Where are you? So I think community in early stages, but throughout sobriety, for me has been so critical and would highly, highly recommend. But I also think in those early stages, like I was saying, it's really it took me into after my first year of sobriety to really, truly start working on myself. And I think if you can start that process earlier, start to dig in behind what your behaviors were telling you and what you actually need within yourself, and building those better coping strategies and tools, because I think that's where we start to get, when we feel wobbly and we start to be like, oh, this is too hard, I don't think I can keep doing this. It's like if you're doing that work on yourself and you have those like tools around in your toolbox, you have the people around you to support you, it's going to make that process a lot easier. So yeah.
Yeah, incredible. I love it.
Mm,
I couldn't
mm,
agree more with that. Yeah, having good people and good tools.
absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Remy. It's been so nice chatting to you and super inspiring journey and the work you're doing as well.
No,
I
thank you
love
so much,
it.
Alison. It's been a joy and a pleasure.
Yay.